Hi guys, so this is lesson 1-4. Lesson 1-4 deals with literal equations. So I don't want you to think that a literal equation is any different from a normal equation. It's just that you're going to see a lot of equations that have mostly variables in them, and we're going to try to solve for one of the variables, which means we're really not doing a lot of math. We're actually only figuring out the equations from the letters. Okay, so for example, one of the literal equations that you may have worked with already in seventh grade or sixth grade is distance equals rate times time. So this is d equals rt. So if I were to solve this equation for d, it's actually already done for me. D equals rate times time. So that is one literal equation that we could get from this. However, sometimes we don't know the distance, or sometimes we do know the distance and we don't know the rate. The rate is speed. So remember that rate is always speed when you're working with any of these. The time, maybe we don't know the time. So we're looking for what we don't know. So if they ask us to solve this equation for r, so they may say solve this for r. Well, you have to go back to the properties of equality that you learned to solve an equation. And the property of equality just means this. If I want to get r all by itself, right now it's multiplied by t. So in order to undo the multiplication and get rid of the t, that means I have to do division. So the opposite of, or the inverse operation of multiplication is to divide. So now I'm going to take the t away from both sides by dividing both sides by t. So if I divide this side by t and this side by t, this side is d divided by t. These two will cancel out because t divided by t is just 1t, it's just 1. And over here is what we have when we have our r. So if I wanted to know the rate, I would figure out the rate by first figuring out what this is. Okay. The other thing I could do is I could figure this out for the time. So if I took this d equals r times t, and I wanted to know time, well, time is the exact same thing. Since these are multiplied, I got to do the inverse operation to get rid of the r, and I got to divide both sides by r. So if I would divide by both sides by r, t equals d divided by r. Okay, and here's a little math trick for you, because I told you I'm always going to show you these. This is my math triangle I like to use. Okay, and that is just this. If you draw a triangle like this, and you put in d, r, t, you could always think about this. If you want to know the distance, rate and time are together, so you multiply them. If you want to know the time, d over r, distance divided by rate. If you want to know the rate, d over t, distance divided by time. Just a little math trick for you. So when we're thinking about literal equations, we're going to solve these equations for one of the variables that is there. Okay, and there are other ones. Okay, there's sometimes when it's not something that we actually do, like we may have this. We may have this. P equals K plus M plus N. And when we look at that, this means nothing mathematically. Okay, it's a P, K, an M, and an N. Okay, we don't really know, but we may be asked to solve for something. So let's just say that we need to solve for, let's solve for N. So how do I get rid of everything that's with the N? We have to do the inverse operations. So this is positive K. How would you get rid of plus K? You would subtract it, right? It's the inverse. How do we get rid of plus M? We would subtract an M from both sides. So I'll write that out for you real quick so you can see it happen. But here's what we would have. If I subtract K from this side and K from this side, then I would have over here P minus K equals nothing there because the K is now gone. But over here I still have M plus N. And if I want to get rid of the M, well, the M's the same deal. Positive M. How do you get rid of positive M? You subtract an M from both sides. So over here, I would do P minus K minus M. And over here, I would do M minus M. M minus M plus N. So this would be gone now. And we would get P minus K minus M equals N. So now we've solved it for N. So the equation that this would equal is P minus K minus M equals N. So you can solve anything for any, as long as you know that your inverse operations that are happening. Okay, and that could be anything. And I'll show you a few more in some of the next examples and some of the stuff that we'll work on in class. So remember, if you know your inverse properties of equality, when you undo something, you're trying to get rid of something. Take it out one piece at a time, do its inverse operation, and you'll be able to get rid of it. Good luck.